Hey everyone, my name is Eric Gilbert Williams. I'm the author of CoinLords and also did the cover art front and back for this issue number 8 of the Stackchain Magazine. There was a lot of detail and thought that went into all the little tiny nuances. So I wanted to just take a second and run through all of it. And just feel free to reach out to me on X or on Noster, and happy to go through any more details. Or if you want one done for yourself, you just let me know and we'll do some sort of collaboration. It's a lot of fun. So first of all, we get to hang out here in Nashville at this beautiful little spot. Welcome to the office. This is the one garage venue where all the magic happens. And directly above my head is the massive Nashville sign that looks like this with the cover art on it. So it's all real. There's no AI. It's just where I hang out and do all my creative stuff. So if you're ever in Nashville, come hit me up. We'll do a coffee or a gelato or something and give a little tour and have some fun with the billboard and your message on it too. So let's just dive in. Now, in CoinLords lore, this battle is taking place on Planet Gox, which is to represent obviously what happened in the real world of Mount Gox. So in the real world, Mount Gox was an exchange that got, hacked and basically wiped out. And so in the CoinLords universe, we have Planet Gox, which is a planet that got essentially invaded and destroyed and wiped out as well. So I recreate real world events inside the CoinLords universe. I'm going to be writing more background story around this epic battle on Planet Gox with the Meme Team 8. So check out the Substack to learn a little bit more about the character archetypes and their background and how they ended up converging here at this particular battle. And of course, the whole battlefield takes place in some sort of a synthwave style futuristic crazy universe where you got purple skies and things are happening. So a lot of that's explained in the Substack coming out, starting with, let's say, the most obvious thing. You look at this cover and you see this massive giant bear, right? And there's this battle scene as all this fighting going on. So the idea here, talking with the team, was like, well, we wanted to have, we're in bear market right now. So how do we represent that? What could that look like? And how do the characters really get included and represented in all this? So first of all, we have the bear itself. That's this mecha bear, you could call it, to give a sort of vibe and a feel. Any of you that have seen Ready Player One, you remember that scene at the end when everyone clashes together and you got Mecha Godzilla and all the different characters down below. This is supposed to give a little bit of a vibe of that. That was the inspiration. And the bear is, you can see he's got these, the red eyes going on. He's staring down, looking at the battle scene. So we got this Ready Player One battle scene, and you have all these little warriors all over the place, right? So you can think of all these little warriors as the bear army, and these are just the plebs. These are the guys that don't understand, the girls that don't understand, and are just out there to cause FUD and doubt, but they're also in the bear side. When you watch Ready Player One, you'll see the Sixers are everywhere. This is a battle of Meme Team 8 against the FUD of the plebs and the FUD of, you could say, the Sixers from Ready Player One sort of vibe and essence. You can see that the evil army is just getting blasted and destroyed, kind of like a droid army in Star Wars, or however you want to reference it. Now, if you go to the back cover for a second, it's weird to cover the back before we go to the front, but that's how it goes. On the back, you see we have the perspective here of looking down at the battle scene from the helm inside the control cockpit of what's happening with the bear. The designs that you see that are implemented are based on the replication. You can see from the character art that I was given right over here, we got a lot of resemblance between what's going on in the cover design versus the character that I've provided. So how hovering over in Mecha Bear, just doom and gloom coming in to squish and squash everyone in his way. I'm gonna look at V next. You see V right here. She's got her glider that she's positioned on. She's got the sword upright. So the sword, it's obviously there's like an evil energy going on there. So I wanted to dive deeper into it. So for me, I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. I'm a Warhammer fan. I put those two together. And in the CoinLords universe, we have the hooded ones. The hooded ones represent, you could say, hackers, and some of them are black or white, or some of them are good or bad, right? You never really know the nature, and you don't want to underestimate, and you don't want to judge either. It's just powerful people at a computer, and you got to respect that. And that's kind of the vibe that I went with for V. Now she's holding her sword. I put it up over her head, and look, her arm is like fully extended, straight up, just like the deleted scenes from Lord of the Rings. If you go and the Witch King is up on the Nazgul looking down at Gandalf, and he raises his sword up to the sky and he says, "Your staff is broken," or something like that. Obviously, that's not what happens in the book, but it's a pretty cool visual in the movie. And I thought that was a cool visual to carry over here, because in the character reference, her sword had some energy around it. And that's immediately where my brain went, was the Witch King up on the Nazgul. Now, the sword itself is a unique sword. That sword actually represents the sword held by Malekith inside the Warhammer Fantasy lore, which represents the most evil leader character of the Dark Elves. Look at his swords. It's essentially an inspired design from that memory. So we got all these things wrapped together. And if you look at the character reference again, she's wearing a crown of some sort. So I'm like, well, what kind of crown do we want to give her? Well, what's the biggest, baddest, most evil crown that's ever existed? Well, that's Morgoth's crown, right? Morgoth from obviously Lord of the Rings, one of the foundational principal characters that gave rise to for the story to even exist. He's got 3 points on his crown. So I took that inspiration, put it into V's head. Obviously, I didn't put in the similarian because that would be too close of replication, but I wanted to do a little homage and nod. So that's where we got a lot of V's character. So next up, we have Chicken Tender here, flying as a, I guess not as chickens do, but they do here now. So anyway, look at his face, right? So starting, first of all, I wanted to carry the essence of the character art that I was provided. And in this case, looks like a crazy chicken, right? So to me, the eyes kind of resembled, in essence, Mad-Eye Moody from Harry Potter. So I wanted to give that little bit of a crazy vibe where it's a bit mechanical and it's kind of got its own life. You know, the character art is obviously kind of goofy and funny and silly, and that's why we love it. Now, in the CoinLords universe, I was like, well, how do we carry that and give it a meaning? Well, in this context, both of his eyes are independently controlled mechanisms that are guided by different levels of AI and nanotech. So it's actually processing data at different levels of sensory perception, like infrared and radar and X-ray, all at the same time. So he's getting this immense input of information through his mechanical mask that is, nanotech enabled. So imagine you got this badass crazy guy who's in the middle of a war, and he just, puts on his game face. And part of it's psychological to freak people out, and that's kind of the thought behind it. Now you see that he's wearing the style of hood that he's wearing obviously pulls from the character reference, also relates directly with the maximalist tribe that exists inside the CoinLords universe. So what I'm saying here is that Chicken Tender is a true maximalist in this depiction, and we're blending the two worlds. Now, in his hand, we have some really important piece of reference. If you look closely, there's an agave painted on this bottle. So basically, he's carrying a bottle of tequila. Now, why is the tequila entering the battle scene? Well, if you know, you know. And there's a lot of uses for tequila in a battle: liquid courage, Molotov cocktail, or maybe something else. Maybe there's another factor at play here. I'm gonna let your imagination play with that one, but he does have the tequila and true maximalist flying chicken tender vibe. He's got the globe here of the CoinLords signature weapon, you could say. I'm gonna explain that in a second. And now I made him fly. I gave him wings. I wanted to pull some inspiration from the Falcon over in Marvel. Because there is a little bit of crossover, but I didn't want to pull too much, so I didn't put a jetpack. Instead, we gave him rocket boots. This way, it kind of blends the two together. We got a little bit of, creativity in there. You'll see the pants are the same color. Basically the hood and the overcoat is the same color. Now, when you look at the globe, if you go back to CoinLords culture, and I wrote a lot about this in the CoinLords Substack, the references of CoinLords pull a lot from Atlas Shrugged, Ayn Rand, V for Vendetta, George Orwell, 1984. Those references and the philosophies around them mean a lot to me. And if you remember when you read Atlas Shrugged, because I'm sure you've all read Atlas Shrugged, and when you go through it, if you remember, Dr. Robert Stadler, I believe it was, had Project X that was essentially projecting vibrations from musical instruments or sound waves, basically, to affect the physical world. And in his case, it was for destruction, but it doesn't always have to be for that. It's the concept of projecting something invisible that does have an effect on the outside world. And even John Galt himself, spoiler alert, I'm giving you some spoilers here, but John Galt himself had a little mechanism as a lock design. So if he did the lock wrong, it would go and, destroy the stuff inside. So I wanted to take that and apply an element of telekinetics, right? Because in V for Vendetta, we know that V had to free his mind, and Evie had to free her mind in order to be part of this group, to truly understand the value of life and to be on the correct side of the philosophy in V for Vendetta. And in CoinLords, we represented some of that as a technology where the maximalists here that live on planet Satoshi can read and sense when a brain actually becomes free, right? We know from technology today that brains emit certain frequencies and brainwaves. So, and they're trackable. So if we think 500 years in the future with advanced technology, we can actually start picking up on different people's brainwaves and what kind of wavelength they happen to be on. So in this world, the brain waves are something that can be altered, affected, read, understood. And this globe that you're seeing here is a reference back to issue number 1 of CoinLords, where the Doberman sphere that's held on the necklace of the main maximalist there in the book, he opens it up and activates it. And what it does is it takes his brain waves, as long as they're pure. You have to have pure thoughts. You can't use this technology for harm, or it will self-destruct. And it amplifies his thoughts in a telekinetic way. And that's the essence and why and the spirit of why the globe is there with the B on it. It's to represent the ultimate apex of technology in being able to amplify someone's thoughts and physically interact with the real world. So I gave Chicken Tender one of those because I thought it would be a really, really cool weapon and almost a gift, for the character. Now, right in the middle of the page, I guess we're going to go here next. We've got Goat. And Goat is a crazy mechanical, out of control goat that's got laser eyes coming down and just jumping through the throng battle scene. No fear whatsoever in this goat. And you look, the color of the laser eyes from Goat matches the bear. So you could potentially say that Goat is kind of maybe bear market evil, just like the bear is. But that raises the question, like, is a bear perspective evil or not? I don't know if it really is. We're all in a bear market. We can kind of acknowledge that, but we also can acknowledge that there's huge bulls coming around the corner. So to be a bear isn't necessarily to be evil. It just means to be on that side of the discussion. So in this case, in this depiction of the battle, we have Goat that is on the side of the bear. And you can see that he's not exactly evil because look, Goat's got his crazy laser eyes coming down, and he's not actually attacking anyone on Meme Team 8. He's actually going after one of the evil guys in this scene and gets him square in the chest. It's not an accident. He's actually fighting against the fear and doubt. He's still a bear market perspective, but he's fighting against the fear and doubt of the general market. All right, next up is Dr. Doggo. Dr. Doggo, you can see, is wearing a very similar style suit with markings and wear and tear that's going on in the character reference I was given here. And I did a couple little fun things. Obviously we gave him some electricity and some sparks and just try to keep that essence alive. I decided, instead of giving him 2 red eyes, I decided to give him a red and a green eye. That's because in the CoinLord universe, there's a character called the Day Trader. And the Day Trader is essentially a person that is imbued with, you could say, mystical abilities that are a little bit beyond comprehension because they're just parts of the universe that we haven't fully finished understanding. Those mystical gifts are to understand and feel. You can actually feel fear and greed in the market. When those emotions are mastered, you're able to switch it and project fear or greed into the market. So you can actually influence if someone's feeling fearful or greedy, or you can influence a whole city or a population or a country to feel more greedy or fearful, depending on what your motivations happen to be. So Dr. Doggo is distilled with these powers of feeling and projecting fear and greed. And that's why I gave him both the red and the green eyes, to keep that character lore in line, and also to have, because obviously the character references have some lights as well. So if you look really closely, there's an Easter egg here, and Dr. Doggo's spear, actually, if you put it upright and turned it white, that actually is an inspiration from Saruman's spear. It's kind of hidden in there. You can't really see or reference it until I specifically point it out, because I'm just giving homage to the character evolution, the story arc of Saruman in reference to Dr. Doggo as well. Because Saruman, you remember, started out as a great and powerful good wizard. He was part of the good team, right? And it was only throughout long periods of time that Sauron was able to corrupt his spirit and ultimately turn him evil. That spear, though, is to me representative of both sides of an equation where a character can start one way and end up another way. And that's why, again, we got him both with a green eye and a red eye, because you never really know what side of him you're going to be dealing with. So Dr. Doggo's a little unpredictable here, but one thing he does really, really well is kick the shit out of this little soldier dude here. He's definitely not going to survive that attack. Next, we're going to move over to HIQ. Now, HIQ is an interesting character. You see him coming in so majestically in from his portal. Now, both the Maximalists and the Hooded ones have access to portal technology. The Hooded ones are obviously a little more blacker in nature, and the Maximalists are a little bit gold. That's how you can differentiate between the two. Now, you see that the face is green and the eyes are red. So really, the alignment is present between HIQ, V, and Goat and Mecha Bear to be more on that bearish side. They're kind of the evil ones, you could say, in this battle. But are they really evil? Because, of course, as we know, goat is attacking the army. Either way, HIQ comes flying in here, and we got a couple cool things. We got his little lightning flash on his chest. I wanted to carry that consistently and keep the coloring in line, give him sort of a superhero outfit. And the bat, now why is he holding a bat? I was told that HIQ, if he had a weapon of choice, he would choose a bat. So we decided to give him not just any bat, we give him a really badass bat.
Influence
spikes,
if someone's feeling fearful,
barbed wire all around it.
It
kind of gave me
city
a
or a
sense
population
of
or a country
called
to feel more
Walking Dead. If you remember the Walking Dead episode,
fearful, depending on
bat. And you know it's a
what
badass
your motivations
bat
happen
when they actually make a magic card
distilled with these powers
replicating it.
So feeling
this
and
is the
projecting
same
fear and
sort of
greed.
style.
That's why I gave them both the
bat
red and the green eyes
across, you know, Magic the Gathering, Walking Dead, and of course HIQ requested it. So ask and ye shall receive. Now his helmet, he's got a bit of a Spartan vibe to it. If you look at the ancient Spartan Greek helmets, it kind of looks like that, which also simultaneously resembles Eric from Magneto in the X-Men series, right? So this is a helmet to sort of pay homage not only to some of my favorite characters in the X-Men lore, but also my passion towards ancient Greece, and the Spartans were some of the strongest badass soldiers that ever existed in human history, really paving the way for Alexander the Great to come in too. So that's HIQ and all of his character glory. All right, next over, let's scroll over and have a look at Mr. Grepples. Mr. Grepples here has, you can see, similar facial expressions, sort of colors, similar style, body type, all that. Wanted to keep it all consistent. And to my understanding, Mr. Grepples here is a bit of a Star Wars fan. So if you look in his hands, I gave him this sort of futuristic looking crazy thing. And anyone who's as much of a Star Wars nerd as I am might remember one of the crazy ass stormtroopers that was using a style of this weapon that kind of has a similar strength as a lightsaber, but it's not as cool as a lightsaber because it has so much more weaknesses and vulnerabilities. But that essence of holding a one-handed crazy ass weapon that kind of functions like a lightsaber is what I wanted to bring in. And here he just, you know, whips it around and boom, he just knocks this dude's head. So Grepples here has got, you know, similar color hoodie. He's got sort of the blue jeans going on.
Lightning flash
just a badass
on his chest.
Wanted
to carry that
pull his weight
and
make
keep the coloring in line, give him sort of a superhero outfit.
Now,
and
right behind Grepples, you can see
he's
there's
holding
a
a bat.
sword.
I was told that HIQ, if he
one
had
of
a
the
weapon
bad
of
guys
choice,
in
he
here.
would choose.
So let's trace that back all the way to Robert. Robert is sitting in his throne and it's flying around, sort of gliding, and it's using the golden energy of the Bitcoin maximalist. So that's how you know that, you know, he's on that side. And you got this one sword slicing through here. You got another sword slicing through over here. The throne I gave him was designed to resemble a blend of things. One is the Game of Thrones style, you know, symbology, just a badass throne with swords and knives all over it. But these two swords are flying around because he basically has telekinetic power where he can control these swords and whip them around and do all sorts of things. So essentially, this throne is to represent the same technology that's used in the globe sphere that Chicken Tender has, which is the Bitcoin maximalist's main weapon of choice that amplifies telekinetic thoughts. And he's essentially modified it to control the swords that are flying around him and slicing people up. So he basically doesn't have to lift a finger, and he's got some crazy weapons going all over the place. He's up on the throne because that's where the boss belongs, right? This is sort of boss level mode walking in here or flying in here. Some of the reference that I pulled for this chair, the style of chair that he's on, you can say, well, why isn't it smaller and more futuristic looking like an X-Men? Well, it's because I pulled some, again, Warhammer fantasy lore, the Slan Mage, who is this big giant, you know, no one fucks with this kind of guy ever. And he's, the Slan Mage is up on this massive throne and all the lizard men kind of carry him everywhere he needs to go. He's just at that level with his superior magic, superior leadership skills, superior intelligence, all that. And that's where Robert sits up here. So I designed his outfit to try and look as much like it could for the character reference, and, you know, the mask and the little nozzles out the side and the eyes and keeping it blue because he's just sort of in his own world. You can think of like Mace Windu from Star Wars, where he's got this purple lightsaber. He's in his own category. So this is the only character with blue eyes going on here to kind of give a little bit of homage to the impact that Robert here is having on the battle scene and on the magazine. So Again, these are all just my interpretations and me just having a bit of fun, so don't look too hard into it. Next, we're going to go over to Sat Hoarder. Now, Sat Hoarder, again, trying to make it look exactly like the character references that I was provided to the degree that I can, right? His face is hidden, covered in darkness, and instead of red eyes, I decided to give him slightly green eyes, make him a little bit more bullish in this sort of battle log depiction of what's going on. And little details too, like look at the little strings around his neck. That's, again, to just try and keep reference to the original art as much as we can. Now, Sat Hoarder has got this crazy circular thing going on here. This is basically a force field. And if you go back to CoinLords lore, you remember from some of the opening scenes that the Bitcoin maximalists have this protective shield that they can put in front of them or people they're trying to protect, right? Because the idea of a Bitcoin maximalist and CoinLords is that they're trying to protect the world. They're trying to protect what's good. They're trying to uphold what integrity means and what Bitcoin maximalism means at its essence, which is to bring a better future for all of us and to give a path and a way for us to all walk into a better version of humanity and work through some of the corruption and the challenges that exist all around us. So protection is really at a core of a Bitcoin maximalism, in my mind anyways. And so in the nature of protection, we have the protection shield. And Sat Hoarder is doing that by protecting people around him. He's protecting John Galt, and he's protecting other people behind him. And that's the homage. Now, next in the top left here, we see Pirate King interpreted in this style with his Hawaiian shirt. He's got the beard going on. He's got his ball cap on. Now, in his hands, he's got that Bitcoin maximalist golden globe style energy going on. I mean, he's double fisting this stuff though. He's got one hand just, holding the core of the power, and the other hand, he's just evaporating and destroying people that are attacking him. Because remember that the lore of the Bitcoin maximalist is to do no harm, right? You can't go out there and intentionally harm people. But to defend yourself from harm is not the same as going out to do harm, right? If you're a good person facing a bad person and a bad person is trying to kill you and you kill the bad person first because there was no other option maybe available to you, or that was just the only option, that is not called you doing harm. That's called self-defense. Now, it's a very tricky line to know where self-defense ends and actual harm begins. But let's assume in this context that the character Pirate King understood that and was able to stay in line with protection and doing no harm while evaporating evildoers that are all around him. So that's the intellect that I bestowed upon Pirate King in this context. Now, in the character reference, you see he's basically blind. He's got sort of goggles that resemble what Geordi would wear from Star Trek Next Generation. So I wanted to keep the blindness carried forward, but give it a different depth. So if you look at his eyes, they got this sort of creepy looking weird black socket. You can't tell if they're sunglasses or something. I'll tell you now, they're not sunglasses. These are actually an inspiration drawn from Men in Black. If you remember the third Men in Black, the evil character in that movie had these dark, crazy eye sockets that were just super sketchy and weird. It raised the question, is he blind or is he futuristic, or is there something we don't understand? And in this case, he is blind, but he also can see because he's got these sort of cybernetic, crazy, eyes going on. And you can see the lines around his face. Like, this was not a gentle surgery. Like, this is something bad happened in his past, which I'm going to cover a little bit more in the Substack articles and the background lore of the scene that's happening here. So there's the inspiration behind Pirate King in that context. And obviously the shorts are matching the character reference. And instead of making him sort of scared and freaking out like I was provided, I made him like a badass intellectual. So hope you enjoy. And then, of course, the elephant in the room here is this big, giant red line flying around with going through this dude's skull. And if you look really, really close, it actually looks like a pen, right? So this is actually a pen that's flying around and slicing people up. And it's coming from none other than Waldo. And I've been told that Waldo is the ultimate marker and editor, scratching out and putting edits that need to happen on the final cut before Stackchain Magazine goes to print. So on his chest, you got the skull here to give him sort of a power vibe. I was thinking a little bit like the Punisher. He's got this sort of gritty face. He's wearing a bit of armor, very, very military. So I wanted to draw a little bit of Punisher vibe and bring that in here, but not like full Punisher, a little bit more like a Ghost Rider. But anyways, below the skull, in true, you could say, pirate theme, is you got the X. But the X is made not of swords, it's made of red pens. And for Robert, his red pens are even more dangerous than a pirate's double-handed swords. And you can see that because obviously the pen is whipping around and, well, killing people. So Waldo has what I called again, this is another one of those self-propelling technologies. This one's driven by nanotech, though, that's controlled through the goggles that he's wearing. You see, like, he's got the yellow goggles that gives him the sight. And so imagine like a visor that you would see from Iron Man, let's say, from Marvel, where he's speaking commands to the equivalent of like a Jarvis that's then executing on those commands. And here, part of the inspiration, if you remember back in Guardians of the Galaxy, we had this epic control module on the dude's head that ultimately allowed him to move through the use of his whistle, the device, the spear, the arrowhead, you could say, that would go around and wipe people out. So I wanted to borrow and draw inspiration from that vibe, but switch it and be a little bit more robotics automation controlled based on a targeting system in the visor. So that's what's going on with that scene, and that's the weapon that he's got right now. And you can see in the character reference, got the yellow eyes, we got the face exposed. And here in the character reference, he's wearing like a hard hat from construction. I modified that to be a little more military in origin because it seemed to be appropriate. So I just went with that. Now let's loop back to HIQ for a second. There's a little Easter egg here. If you look really closely at the character reference that I was provided for HIQ, at his feet happens to be a raccoon. And the raccoon is kind of looking with his nose pointed towards something that kind of looks white and in a line. And when I first looked at this, I laughed really hard because it looked to me like the raccoon was doing drugs. Look, he was snorting a line of coke at the first impression. So I was like, all right, I'm going to roll with this. And so if you zoom in on this little Easter egg, you got the crazy, crazy raccoon. And there was an accident that happened and I just left it because it's like, what the fuck? So crazy raccoon has kind of got a vibe of the crazy Chucky that was happening in Ready Player One. If you remember that scene, and H is like, try this little guy, and then he throws over Chucky, and he's like, oh, it's Chucky, and they throw him out, and Chucky goes and kills everyone around it. Well, that's what's happening right here. Crazy raccoon is just demolishing and wiping everyone out. Now, if you look, what's this thing in his hand? You got to ask yourself. Well, when I saw that the raccoon was doing, looked like he was snorting coke, I said to the artist, I said, hey, put like a bump chain or like a bump spoon around his neck to give him like a bit of a drug paraphernalia, because that would seem in theme. And instead of giving him a small bump spoon that would like actually fit as a necklace, they gave him this huge, like human-sized bump spoon, and then they put it in his hand as a weapon. So his hand, he's actually bashing people's skulls apart with a spoon that's essentially drug paraphernalia, and he's just hyped up on something. Like this is the craziest raccoon. I did not mean for this to go all unhinged as far as it did, but like it definitely happened. So we're just gonna roll with it because hey, that's how we do, right? Now the last character we have, of course, is John Galt himself. Best for last there, because John Galt to me is really the archetype of where we should all aspire to be. We're talking about John Galt from Ayn Rand's classic Atlas Shrugged book, and if you have not read that, then please do. John Galt is the main character, and it's really the foundation for CoinLords as a comic book. John Galt, again, a couple spoilers here, but John Galt essentially is the founder of Galt's Gulch, which is the magnetic drawing point, the force of gravity for the most intelligent, productive minds and people that exist in humanity. And they all live on Galt's Gulch. And so the CoinLords lore is to explore what would happen if Galt's Gulch grew in popularity, reputation, and strength sufficiently to encompass the entire planet. So you have an entire planet of productive, free, sovereign minds that are all working together in harmonious understanding of what is good and what is evil. And we're all doing that together. So to me, John Galt is you could say the foundational, inspirational character that led me to building CoinLords universe in the way that it exists. And so now we have this character, John Galt, sitting right in the middle. Now, somehow, I'll have to ask Dave about this, but somehow John Galt's character reminds me a lot in terms of the ripped sleeves and muscles and the gun of our good friend Dave Bradley here in the character that was depicted on the CoinLords cover art. So I gotta ask them both about some of the similarities. But either way, we got the double-handed, double machine gun version of John Galt here with the raccoon cap. Obviously, we don't want to tell the crazy raccoon over here that maybe his brother is sitting on John Galt's head, but either way, it's there. We got the golden eyes are carried over, and this is, you could say, the front and center character of this battle and of also the CoinLords archetype lore that has grown to be what it is. So this is the essence fully laid out for you of the details that was put into this issue of Stackchain Magazine. Meme Team 8, I'm very, very grateful to you guys. I'm grateful to everyone that's listening to this and watching this. Check out CoinLords. Make sure to pick up your copies of Stackchain Magazine. I've picked up more than one. Buy them for your friends, your relatives, your uncles, your sisters, your cousins, everyone that needs to have one. Limited edition, I think. And you want to stack up so you don't miss out. So again, full gratitude to everyone out there that's supported CoinLords and supported Stackchain Magazine. This is like community-driven work. It's passion, love-driven work with a mission of changing the world for the better. And we can all do our part, one little step at a time, one little seemingly insignificant choice at a time to move the needle forward and resolve corruption forever for all of us, to bring a better currency to the world. And anyways, hope you enjoyed, have fun. That was my ramble about crazy details that probably no one cares about. Enjoy.
CoinLords.